This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
Welcome in, everyone, to Lively Lewis Stories.
That's right. We're back with even more awesome adventures with Levi and Ivy.
Set your storytime meter to fun and get ready to join the Lively Lewis crew.
All you need is your imagination and...
Off we go! I can't wait to see where our story takes us today.
Have you ever wanted to get more Lively Lewis in your life?
Well, we've got you covered.
Grab an adult and zoom over to livelylewisshop.com.
Or just click on the link in our show notes.
Enough about that. Let's get to today's super Lively Lewis story.
The story you're about to enjoy was inspired by Zoe. Thank you so much, Zoe, for your amazing idea. Peyton was the cutest little penguin in Winter Wonderland Village. With a splendid smile and fantastic flippers, always ready to give and get a hug from a friend. Peyton spent her days playing in the snow, sledding down hills on her belly, warming up with cups of hot chocolate, and ice skating on Winter Wonderland's village wonderful frozen lake. Peyton loved ice skating more than any other winter activity and took every opportunity she could to twirl, swirl, and leap on the sparkling frozen lake just at the edge of her village. Her friends loved skating too, but were not as good as Peyton. They watched in awe as she zoomed around the ice and soared through the air, completing tricks they could never dream of doing. They cheered on their friend and happily watched as she glided around the lake on chilly winter days. However, Peyton didn't care about the praise or the cheering. She was just happy to spend those chilly winter days with her closest friend. "Great job, Peyton," called out her best friend Peter, a polar bear that Peyton had known her whole life. "Thank you, Peter," called out Peyton with a big smile as she came to a stop right in front of her friend, sending a wave of crystal ice swirling through the air. "Snowstorm!" called out Peter. He loved the way Peyton could make it snow whenever she wanted by sliding to a quick stop on the ice. The two friends decided to spend a little time on the lake that day while they waited for their friend, Levi and Ivy, to join them. Levi and Ivy had been visiting Winter Wonderland Village for years with their parents and loved seeing Peyton and Peter. They also enjoyed ice skating and every winter hoped that they could learn some new skating moves from Peyton. She made them look easy, so they thought for sure one of these years they'd be able to skate as good as she could. As Peyton and Peter waited for their friends, they made snow creatures and ice forts. They worked hard on their creations, laughing and talking all the way. Then all of a sudden, they heard a noise coming from behind a circle of pine trees. "Do you hear that?" asked Peyton with a smile. She knew what, or should I say who it was, but loved to play and wanted to see what would happen next. "Yep, it sounds like something or someone crunching through the snow," answered Peter with a smile. He winked at Peyton as he also knew who was making the noise too. He pointed with the paw toward the trees and mentioned that he and Peyton should tiptoe over and surprise the visitors. Peyton nodded her head as she followed Peter. Once they reached the circle of pine trees, Peyton whispered to Peter, "1, 2, 3, then pointed her flipper at the trees. They both knew what to do. They leapt through the air and tumbled through the pine tree branches, landing right in front of... "Levi, Ivy, it's so great to see you!" exclaimed Peyton. "We knew it was you. What took you so long to get here?" asked Peter. But before Levi and Ivy could answer, or even dust the snow off themselves, Peyton wrapped her flippers around them, giving them the biggest and best penguin hug ever. "I missed you both so much," said Peyton, hugging her friends tight. "Get in here, Peter." Not wanting to miss out on one of Peyton's famous hugs, Peter jumped at the chance to join the snuggle. "Yeah, it's so great to see you," added Peter. "We have so many fun things planned for your visit." Peyton backed up, giving Levi and Ivy a little room to breathe, and again asked what took them so long to get to Winter Wonderland Village. "Usually you two are here early in the morning so we can get the most out of your time here," said Peyton. "It's after lunchtime. What happened?" Levi and Ivy continued to brush snow out of their hair as they answered Peyton and Peter's curious questions. "What happened was a cold," said Levi. "But it's always cold here. Why would that slow you down?" said Peter. "No, not like cold like the temperature. Cold like being sick," giggled Ivy. "Our parents each have a cold. They're doing better now, but they've had runny noses and have been sneezing for days. It took them a little longer to get moving this morning, so that's why we're late," added Levi. "Oh, I get it now," said Peyton. I'm sure the fresh, crisp winter Wonderland Village air will have them both feeling better in no time. Or maybe they just need a Peyton hug. Well, I think your hugs could cure a cold, giggled Levi. I'm sure they just need a little more time to rest and they'll be all good. When we headed down here to look for you and Peter, the Winter Wonderland Village doctor was with them. He gave them some tasty tea and told them to take it easy for another day or two. That sounds like a good plan, said Peyton. So how about while we wait for them to feel better, we do a little ice skating? It didn't take Levi and Ivy more than 2 seconds to grab their skates out of their bags and race toward the lake. Peyton and Peter followed close behind. As their friends laced up their skates, they pointed toward a beautiful house on a hill overlooking the lake. That's where we're staying this weekend, explained Levi. Our parents figured it would be best to stay in a place where they could watch us on the lake since they can't be down here with us like they usually are. So they switched our reservations right before we left. Levi and Ivy finished tying their skates and stood up by the edge of the lake. They turned toward the big house on the hill and waved to their parents who were sitting out on the porch sipping their tea. Hi, Levi and Ivy, called out their mom. Hi, Peyton and Peter. Be careful out there. We will, Mom, called back Ivy as she took her first step out onto Winter Wonderland Village's frozen lake. It was nothing sort of magical. Surrounded by hills glistening with snow, the rest of the world seemed to fade away as Ivy pushed off and began to skate toward the center of the lake. Levi followed close behind, his arms outstretched as he tried to get his balance so he didn't fall. It had been a year since they had skated, but as soon as they started gliding around everything Peyton had taught them over the years came flooding back. They gained their confidence back and began to move faster and faster on the ice. In a matter of minutes, they were twirling, swirling, and leaping as if they had been skating every day. Great job, Levi and Ivy, called out Peyton as her friends zoomed around the lake. Wow, look at them go, added Peter. They're almost as good as you, Peyton. Peyton could have not been prouder of her friends, and she and Peter joined them in the center of the lake. The four friends glided around the frozen lake, skating faster and faster as they made loop after loop. They laughed and joked and tried new tricks as a light snow began to fall. I feel like I'm in a dream, called out Ivy to Peyton. I love Winter Wonderland Village. But little did they know there was someone else down the lake. Someone who was ready to turn their daydream into a bad dream. Oh no. Hey Peyton, do you know that person? Asked Levi as he did a spin in the air but fell as he tried to land. Peyton turned to see who Levi was looking at, and as she did, she lost her balance and tumbled onto the ice. As she slid towards the edge of the lake, trying to stop herself, Peter skated past her. I know who it is, he called out as he stumbled onto a bump on the ice and went sliding into a snowbank at the edge of the lake. What is going on with all of you? Asked Ivy as she skated toward her brother and friends. Why does it look like all of a sudden you all forgot how to skate? And as soon as those words left her mouth, Ivy too lost her balance unexpectedly and fell with a plop on the ice. We didn't forget how to skate, said Peyton. It's a spell. A spell cast by her. That's when Peyton stood up and pointed to a shadowy figure looming behind a tall pine tree not too far from the edge of the lake. The light snowfall was making it hard to see the person clearly, but all of a sudden the figure started to walk towards them. Levi and Ivy were nervous, not knowing who it was, but Peyton and Peter walked confidently toward the person, each with a scowl on their face. This was so unusual for Peyton especially, who usually wore a big smile and was ready with a friendly hug for whoever needed it. What brings you to the lake, Sydney? Asked Peyton as the figure walked closer into view. Yeah, we could have gotten hurt, Sydney. That wasn't very nice, added Peter. If you want to skate with us, you can. You don't always have to play mean tricks on us. Peter, you know that we've tried 1,000,000 times to be nice to Sydney, and it just doesn't work, said Peyton. So please, just leave us alone and we'll leave you alone, just like you want. Levi and Ivy still didn't know exactly what was going on, so they hopped up and tried their best to follow Peyton and Peter through the snow with their ice skates on. Who is Sydney? Asked Levi to Peyton and Peter as they were now standing in front of Sydney. She was a little girl about Levi and Ivy's age, dressed in a sparkling blue cloak and giant glittery fur boots. Sydney is a witch, and not a nice one, answered Peyton. She lives just outside Winter Wonderland Village, and no matter how many times Peter and I have tried to be friendly to her, she would rather play tricks and cast spells on us. Yep, that is about right, said Sydney with a smirk. Playing tricks and casting spells is just so much fun. Sorry. Come on, Levi and Ivy, let's head back to the ice, began Peyton. As long as we don't look at her, we can skate undisturbed. No more falling. Oh, I'm sure there'll be some falling, laughed Sydney. I was watching you skate the other day, and you're not as great as you used to be, Peyton. Not as great as she used to be, exclaimed Peter. She's the best ice skater in all of Winter Wonderland Village. Maybe even the world. Well, why don't you prove it? Said Sydney, trying to engage Peyton. And unfortunately for Peyton, it worked. I can skate better than you with both flippers tied behind my back, said Peyton. Great! That sounds like a challenge to me, answered Sydney. But let's make it a little more interesting. And as Sydney said that, she took a wooden wand from her pocket and swirled it in the air around Peter. Then in just a few seconds, Peter was frozen solid, only able to blink and move his eyes. What did you do? Exclaimed Peyton. That's not funny. Unfreeze Peter right now. Oh, I absolutely will, said Sydney. Okay, good, said Peyton as she rushed over to Peter and did the only thing she could think of. She gave him a big hug. I'll unfreeze Peter after you or your friends win the ice skating contest, giggled Sydney as she made her wand disappear into her cloak. Peter seems to think you're the best ice skater in the world, so this should be no problem at all, right? What skating contest? Asked Peyton. What are you talking about? And as she was asking that question, the snow began to fall harder and harder, and a fierce wind blew down from the hilltops. Peyton, Peter, Levi, and Ivy covered their eyes and huddled together. When it all stopped in just a minute or two, they opened their eyes and saw a very different scene at the lake. This contest! answered Sydney. Peyton, Levi, and Ivy all looked around and saw a big table with a sign in front of it that read, Judges. There were bright and colorful flags lining the edge of the lake and stands filled with people and animals from Winter Wonderland Village waiting for the ice skating contest to begin. Peyton, Levi, and Ivy stood by Peter, looking very nervous. However, they had to help their friend and knew exactly what to do. They accepted Sydney's challenge and got ready to skate. Peyton, Levi, and Ivy turned around, taking it all in. The ice skating contest looked very official, and they didn't know what was going to happen next. How do you like it? It's just a little something I whipped up, said Sydney. I think we should get started. Don't you, Peyton? This is how it will go. If you, Levi, or Ivy win the contest, then I'll unfreeze Peter right now. And if you win, asked Peyton, then I'll unfreeze him whenever I feel like it. Laughed Sydney. Since you say you're so good, I think it's only fair that I get to use my magic. Peter's eyes grew big as he looked at Peyton, but quickly calmed Levi and Ivy on their team. He was so sure there was no way they could lose. Plus, he was a polar bear and used to being so cold, so the freezing part didn't really bother him that much. He really just wanted to be with his friends again and couldn't imagine missing out on any more fun winter things because he was frozen. We can't let her use her magic, said Levi and Ivy to Peyton. There's no arguing with her. I'm sorry, answered Peyton. She set this all up and we have to play by her rules. We just need to focus on Peter and winning this contest as quickly as possible so we can get him unfrozen. But her magic won't affect us if you just listen to me. Let her finish talking first, then I'll tell you how. I'll let Levi and Ivy go first, then you can skate, Peyton, said Sydney. And since they always save the best for last, that's when I'll skate. Right after that, I'll grab the trophy over there and skate home with the title of Best Ice Skater in all of Winter Wonderland Village. Levi, Ivy, and Peyton all turned to where Sydney was pointing and saw the biggest, most beautiful trophy they had ever seen. It was carved out of ice and shimmered in the afternoon sun. It had a beautiful ice skate, completely made out of snow, resting on the very top, and they each wanted it more than anything. Peyton just stared at Sydney before taking Levi and Ivy to the side of the lake for a quick pep talk before the contest began. You two are amazing skaters. I know if we work together that one of us can win this for Peter, began Peyton. And here is the secret to not letting Sydney use her magic. Don't look directly at her. If you make eye contact, that's when she can cast a spell and make you stumble and fall. Magical ice skating competitions? Frozen friends? Spell casting ice witches? This was all new to Levi and Ivy as they were both a little nervous. But with their parents watching and Peyton in the corner, they vowed to do their very best to help Peter. Peter gave Peyton, Levi, and Ivy a wink. Well, because that was all he could kind of do before the contest began. Giant speakers surrounded the Winter Wonderland Village Lake and were used by the judges to announce the skaters and play music as they performed. Levi was announced first. As his music began, he took a deep breath, pushed off, and began to glide. Faster and faster he went before he did his first leap. He landed it perfectly, which helped with some of the butterflies in his stomach going away. Not feeling quite so nervous anymore, he did another great leap and a giant twisty twirl. His skating was flawless, and he was feeling great. So great, in fact, that he forgot where Sydney was standing. Just as he was finishing up his last and toughest ice skating trick, he accidentally looked right at her. As soon as he made eye contact, his ice skates felt like they were filled with sand. He couldn't move his feet and began to wave his hands around wildly as he flew toward Ivy and Peyton sitting on the bench by the edge of the lake. "We've got you, Levi," called out Peyton as she stretched out her flippers to catch her friend. "A Peyton hug saves the day, yet again," called out Levi as he finally stopped his out-of-control icy glide. "Thank you, Peyton." "You looked at Sydney, didn't you?" asked Peyton with a smile. "I know this whole thing is a lot to deal with, and you did a great job, Levi." They looked at the judges to see how good of a job. And as you can imagine, his scores were good, but not great because of the big crash at the end of his last trick. "Don't worry, Levi, you did great, and I'm up next," said Ivy as she hopped up and got on the ice. "Just remember, don't look at Sydney," called out Peyton as Ivy skated toward the center ice. She gave her friends a thumbs up and got ready to start. After the judge announced her and started some music for her to skate to. Just like Levi, Ivy started out wonderfully. Just like Levi, she got better and better as she went on. And unfortunately, just like Levi, what do you guys think is going to happen? She got so confident at the end of her routine that she looked up and accidentally made eye contact with Sydney. Unfortunately for Ivy, this was when she was mid-twirl in the air. And instead of landing perfectly back on center ice with grace and poise, Ivy felt Sydney cast a spell and she noticed she wasn't landing anywhere. Ivy continued to twirl and twirl and twirl and twirl and twirl until she was spinning toward the house where her parents were watching from the porch. "Oh no, Ivy, I said to be careful," exclaimed her mom with a big sneeze as she watched her daughter fly overhead and then back toward the ice. She was headed right for Peyton. "Another incoming flying hug," called out Levi as Peyton extended her flippers yet again and caught her friend midair. "Great job, Ivy," said Peyton as she gave her friend a big hug. "But not good enough," said Ivy, pointing towards the judges' table. "Look." Just like Levi, Ivy's scores were good, but not great. That was because of her flight around the lake and her clumsy landing, all due to Sydney. "Looks like you have one skater left," laughed Sydney as she tied her ice skates. "Good luck, Peyton, and remember, I'll be watching you." Peyton walked over to Peter and reassured her friend that she would do everything she could to win. His eyes showed her that he didn't have a doubt in the world and was confident that she would be the winner of the best ice skater in Winter Wonderland Village. Peyton did a few little stretches, gave Levi and Ivy each a high five, and then glided out onto the ice. The judges announced her name, the crowd went wild, and her music began. Peyton started with a very difficult trick right off the bat, and judges were very impressed. In fact, they became more and more impressed as each skating trick she did got harder and more involved. Levi and Ivy couldn't believe it. They had never seen her skate so well. As Peyton was approaching the end of her routine, she kept telling herself not to look at Sydney. While trying to concentrate on her last and most difficult trick, as she built up some speed, she leapt into the air and began to do flip after flip. She kept her eyes on the ice, and that's when she saw it. Sydney? But how? Even though Peyton wasn't looking directly at Sydney, she found herself looking at a picture of her witchy competitor on the ice. It turns out that Sydney knew Peyton wouldn't look at her, so she projected an image of herself onto the ice with her magic wand. "Oh no," called out Peyton as she felt herself continue to flip over and over again, only stopping when she landed in the pine trees that surrounded the lake. Levi and Ivy ran to their friend and helped her down from a pine branch. "We lost for sure," cried Peyton as she ran towards Peter. "I'm so sorry, buddy." "Peyton, we didn't lose yet," said Levi reassuringly. "He's right," added Ivy. "Sydney still has to go. And just look at your scores. They're better than Levi and mine. They're amazing." "Thank you, but I'm only thinking about Peter right now," said Peyton. "I guess all we can do now is watch and wait." And no sooner did Peyton say that the judges announced Sydney and started her music. Sydney then began to skate with incredible speed and undeniable talent. She was definitely as good as Peyton. It was not hard to think if she and Peyton just worked together, they could be an unstoppable ice skating duo. But Sydney was quite clear that she wanted to be by herself. Or did she? Sydney ended her ice skating routine with an amazing trick that brought the judges and the crowd to their feet with cheering and applause. And as you can imagine, with no witch to put a spell on her and mess up her ice skating routine, Sydney was proclaimed the winner. She received the title of Best Ice Skater in Wonderland Village and a giant trophy. Peyton and Levi and Ivy were not even paying attention at that point. Instead, they all crowded around Peter and let him know not to worry. He looked at them with big, wide eyes, knowing with friends like that in his corner, he could get through anything. Peyton, Levi, and Ivy told Peter jokes to lift his spirit and tried their best to make him feel comfortable. Meanwhile, Sydney was skating around the lake with her new trophy held high over her head. Then suddenly, Peyton, Levi, Ivy, and Peter caught her eye. They were standing by the edge of the lake, and even though they all lost, they looked happy. They found comfort and joy in their friendship and knew, no matter what, they would be friends forever. For Peyton, Levi, and Ivy, it wasn't about winning the ice skating contest. It was about helping Peter, because he was their friend and so much more important than any ice skating title or shimmering trophy. All Sydney had to do was watch the four friends together for a minute, and she got it. She finally understood. Friendship was what she wanted, not the title of Best Ice Skater in Wonderland Village. She didn't even win fair and square. She won by cheating, casting spells, and playing tricks on Peyton, Levi, and Ivy. Sydney didn't feel good about any of that. And after winning the giant trophy, she felt like something was missing. But now she finally knew what that something was. She just hoped that Peyton and all her friends would give her one last chance. So Sydney skated up to the four buddies on the edge of the icy lake and said something she thought she would never say. "Peyton, Levi, Ivy, Peter, I'm so sorry," said Sydney, starting to cry. "Can you ever forgive me for acting unkind, for casting spells, playing tricks, and for not being nice all this time?" Peyton just looked at her friend and then stepped forward. She was shocked at what she heard, but was so happy to hear it. "Of course we can forgive you, Sydney. We've been waiting so long to forgive you, but we couldn't make you apologize. You had to do that yourself," said Peyton. "And we're so glad you finally did." Sydney then handed the trophy to Levi and Ivy. "This belongs to all three of you," said Sydney. "You're not just amazing ice skaters, you're amazing friends. And I would be lucky to call you my friends too." Levi and Ivy accepted the trophy and watched as Peyton did something wonderful. "We'll take the trophy, Sydney, if you'll take this," said Peter as he stretched out her flippers and gave Sydney the thing she was really looking for. A big hug. Sydney was so overcome with emotion, she didn't know what to do at first. Seeing an opportunity to do a nice thing, Levi and Ivy joined in the hug. Sydney then hugged all of them back with a quick glance, unfroze Peter so that he could join in as well. "Thank you so much," said Sydney as she wiped away the tears in her eyes. "I didn't know how much I needed that, how much I needed a friend until I saw all of you after the ice skating contest. It was as if nothing else mattered to you other than making sure you were all okay." "That's it exactly," answered Levi. "Trophies and titles will come and go, but friendships, those are forever." "He's right," said Ivy. "And it doesn't matter if you win a contest, if you're having fun doing something like ice skating, that's all that matters. If you do it to make yourself happy, you'll never be disappointed." "I couldn't ask for better friends," said Peyton as she gave Peter a big hug. "And I'm glad you're back to your old self and not a polar bear popsicle anymore." "I'm sorry about that," said Sydney. "I hope you're okay, Peter." "I'm just fine," laughed Peter as he joked and did a funny voice as if he was still frozen. Everyone laughed, and while they were all having fun, no one noticed the lake turn back to the normal Wonderland Village lake again. Just a fun place to skate with friends and make memories. No more crowds, no more judges, no more contests or spells, just their peaceful icy lake. "So, do you think you'd like to skate with us for a bit?" asked Peyton to Sydney. "I would love that," said Sydney. "And all I can say, I'm so surprised at how nice you are being to me after all those not nice things I did to you." "I'd rather work on our friendship than dwell on the past," said Peyton. "That's what friends do." And from that day on, Peter, Peyton, and Sydney were the best of friends. And every time Levi and Ivy would visit Winter Wonderland Village, the 5 friends would play together from early mornings until the moon rose at night. They would go sledding, make fantastic snow creatures, create unbelievable snow forts, and of course, ice skate. And they would never compete with each other. No one was the best or the worst. They were simply friends. Thanks for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the story and learned a little something too.
And since we know everyone has their own story, we'd love to hear yours.
If you have an idea for a Lively Lewis story, leave a comment on our Apple Podcast review page with 5 stars, your idea, and your little one's name.
Then maybe our next adventure will be with you.
Until our next Storytime Hangout.
Thanks for listening. We can't wait to share another fun Lively Lewis story with you.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.